Okay, it is 4 o'clock. Welcome, everyone. Right now, everyone is muted. If you have any questions, though, there is a little chat that you can put questions in, and Cassandra is here monitoring it. If it's a question that has to do with what we're talking about right then, Cassandra might interject and let me know. Otherwise, we'll look at all the questions at the end. Okay, I'm going to get started. All right, so those of you who were at the keynote last week, you saw me present these ideas and walk through them pretty quickly in a half an hour time. So these were all the elements we talked about. And I am actually going to go through at least the top portion, the first 40 or so, and create them. And we're going to do that in that, hour and a bit time period, so that you can see how easy it is for you to reproduce the same information. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting a little... Okay. Cassandra just told me that the internet is cutting in and out. Hopefully that won't interfere overall. Can everybody hear me? Can you just throw something in chat and let me know that you can hear? Yes, okay, perfect. Thanks, CJ. Great, okay. So I'm gonna jump right in. We're gonna look at, one of our clients has actually said, yes, go ahead and use them as an example, but I'm gonna look at 3 different blogs to start with. We're just gonna spend a little bit of time there so that people can see what kind of places you can get phrases and quotes to turn into the initial graphics that we talked about, right? Those first phrases or quotes that you're gonna pull from your blog. So this is one of ours that was written by Cassandra, and it's specifically talking about guiding, blog readers to become leads. And she has used the title in a quote graphic, obviously, both for the blog, and then that can be used on social media in all of the various ways that we talked about and we'll review. But throughout the blog, you'll see there are nice big headings that any of these can really be grabbed and turned into phrases that are pertinent about the information that follows. So this right here, fun to explore blog topics, can be that phrase or quote that you take from your blog and put into a graphic. So sometimes you've already done the work and you don't realize it. If you don't know how to create those types of topics in the blog, reach out to us later and we can give you some pointers about that. Okay, so you'll see here cleverly relevant calls to action and links. That's another great one that you can just pull right from that element. And in the topic, we looked at quotes and then turning those quotes into questions. So it's quite easy to pop over and flip those around. The audio is breaking up, Joan? Okay. I'm getting a message here. I'm gonna push through and hopefully it'll clear up. Before I send the video out, I will try and clean up the audio a little bit to make sure that it all comes through. If it gets really bad, let me know and we'll see what we can do on our end. Is that good for everybody? For the couple of people who came in afterwards, feel free to throw comments into the group chat. I am monitoring it. Okay, so does that make sense so far? Pulling those headers right from blogs in order to capture those ideas. Can I get something in the chat? Does that make sense? Yes, okay, awesome. Here's another example. I'm just gonna pop one open. All right, so his particular topic here. His title was pretty bold already. So obviously that is a perfect quote that has a question built in that you can flip around as well in any way that you like. But you can dig in a little bit further, right? The more holes you plug, the more holes in water appears, right? That can be a little temptation, right? A little nibble that can make people curious about what you have to offer. So it doesn't have to be the headlines. It can be a phrase in your actual blog itself, one of the paragraphs, or it can be a little summary. Again, headlines usually address those, but just because you pick that as a headline doesn't mean you can't flip it around, right? Think about, you can pull a headline from your blog or pull a little message from your blog and think about 3 to 5 other ways to say the same thing. That is another way for you to come up with those phrases in order to push tempting tidbits from that you're going to share out there in the world with that micro content back to your website. Okay, so now we're going to go to the blog that we actually are going to sort of take apart and use as an example. This is a service focused client. He does home inspections, and he put out a blog that was basically about, how to choose your home inspector, what questions do you need to ask, what information do you need. So there's actually a lot more here than 3 to 5. I think there's probably about 9 different things that can be covered. And you can take any of it, right? You can take this little bit right here where it says know your role. It could be, do you know your role in a home inspection? What does the home inspector do? What do you do? Any of those kinds of phrases can be used. And then you can talk about the various pieces here, right? Do you know what's involved in checking heating in a home inspection, right? That's a simple question. Make sure your home inspector carries insurance. So that's a statement. You can flip that around to say, do you know what kind of home insurance your home inspector needs? So there you've got your 2. And you're going to play with that a little bit. This is the part that's going to take a little bit of brainstorming, a little bit of time. But as you go through, you'll find that this gets easier and easier, right? It's a muscle that you practice, that you exercise. Not that I'm very familiar with exercise, but you get what I'm saying, right? In the know your credentials, that could be just naming the credentials, and then you can ask, does your home inspector have these credentials? It could be, is there a difference between provincial and federal credentials for your home inspector? It can be what questions. So this one here, know what to ask. You can break down any of the things here, right? All of these phrases. What education does your home inspector need? How do they stay current, right? Things change. Electronics are huge in all kinds of homes. How do they stay up to date, right? All of that kind of information can be flipped into either a little phrase or a question. Is that making sense for everybody? I'm going to unmute for a second and let people pop in. Okay. I unmuted everybody, but there we go. How is that? Does that make sense? I just want to stop here and make sure that you guys understand before I hop in on the other elements.
Yes, it does.
Yep. It does?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's good.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I am going to carry on now. And we're going to pop over to the actual activity of creating some of these graphics and looking at some of the elements. So all of the phrases and questions that we just went through, right? And over the course of, what was it, 5 minutes, we created a number of them, not just the 5. But you can see how that would work. And all of those phrases and questions and the multiple ways that you can use them can be used in Twitter, can be used in LinkedIn if that is your preferred platform. We're going to go with the same assumption that we are looking at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But any of those are going to work as far as a strictly text-based share. And you can schedule that in whatever you want. Don't worry about writing this down. Everybody will get a copy of this when I send the replay out, so you don't have to scramble to get it all down. You can put it in whatever schedule you use. If you just use Facebook, you can schedule it right in Facebook. But if you are using it in multiple places, scheduler can really make your life easier. A lot of our clients, when they do their own, are using Buffer because it's very user friendly and they have a free version. We use Social Pilot because it's more robust in the reporting and other things. And again, we have a list of favorite tools, and we'll share that as well with the replay, so you don't have to go hunting for things. But so we're going to go on to that. So here you are, you've already done your first 5. You've got your Twitter, you've got those quotes. We've actually already turned them into questions, so really you've got 10. Now we're going to move on to creating those quotes and those questions into graphics for the social platform. And there are so many different platforms out there. For quick graphics, we use Snappa. Now we have a graphic artist that does fancier ones, but for your purposes, you can create things in a system like Snappa and come up with really nice, simple designs that are going to appeal to your audience and then are going to send your message out there so that you can drive traffic back to your website and start that conversation, right? And ultimately, that's what we're doing. We are, whatever format we're using, we're posting with purpose, we're sharing with purpose. And in this instance, the purpose is to drive traffic back, to start that first touch, second touch, third touch of the sales process. Okay, so here is Snappa, which I'm not a graphic person, and I can make half decent graphics in this. And you can make lists, you can make all kinds of things. I purposely created this last night in Snappa so that you can see exactly how simple it is to utilize. So we're going to start with a Facebook post, and you'll see all of the different sizes are laid out here for you. You don't have to guess, you don't have to check. If what you want to do is not here, or you want to create something custom, you can do that right here. It's very easy, very quick. All right, so Facebook post. You hit the Facebook post and you can start from scratch, or you can use one of many, many, many templates in order to create your quote. And we're going to do both again so that you can see how easy it is for you to create a graphic. So let's just pick one. All right, we're going to use that one. Now, the first quote, we're actually going to just do a question. Do you know what to ask your home inspector? I don't think they want that to be blue. So we're going to change the background. And in this case, the background is a color. And you can change that color to anything you want. And I am going to just really quickly, because I don't remember off the top of my head, I'm going to pick the blue. And I'm going to change that. And so you see I have a color picker here. These are my brand colors, so they're in there already. and it's blue. Nice, quick, and easy. Now, there are various pieces here. So there's a border there. So you can have a border to your image, and then there's your image. We don't want the pretty young lady because it's not applicable to what we're doing. We want to do something that is home inspector related. Now, in here are a whole bunch of photos that are built in. They have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photos, and we'll search for one. And you can also upload photos. So we are, chances are there won't be something like this. Oh, there is still. So you can use a picture that is here already. I don't really like any of those. Suspect this is going to come up with a person. Let's make it simple. Okay, I'm just going to use this. Now this is horizontal and we have a vertical space here. And so we're just going to cut it. We're going to slim that down a bit so that we get the picture we want in a shape that's a little closer. I'm going to accept that. Okay, we're going to use this and then we are going to adjust this to fit. We want the picture to go in the back. Come on. There we go. Okay, so we're going to stretch that over, bring that in. We are not going to leave that like that because that is definitely not his style. We're going to make it very simple. And we're going to reduce this. Apparently I'm spelling challenged today. There. Okay, so there's a little bit of disconnect between the picture and the thing. I'd want to spend a little bit more time. And I do warn you that when you're creating these graphics, especially at the beginning, it can be a little bit of a rabbit hole once you start looking at graphics and trying to choose the right person. And if you're me, throwing a few icons in here. Let's change that to white. It's not the right color. There we go, that's better. Okay, change that to the same color. Make it a little smaller. Okay, so that's just a really quick one. Now, does anybody have any questions about that? Are there, did that look like it was going to be something, terribly difficult to do? I know it's not perfect, but again, I wanted to show you how quickly you can make images like this in, a really short time period, and how much option you have for the various pictures. I'm going to go back to a home because that's just not working for me. And we're going to look at this a little bit longer. Okay. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Here. I did warn you that you go down rabbit holes. Okay, so now this border, I just used the one that was there, but you can see, let's make sure that that's at the lower end. There we go. You can see how you can actually enlarge that border quite a bit, making it look different. Oops. There we go. Making it look different, giving different feels to it. You can change that color, again, really simply, right? You don't have to, that's the fill. There we go. It's this that I was going for. You can make changes, change the feel of things, make it your own in a really fast and simple way. No, Stacy, you can actually utilize they have a free version and then a paid version. We do a paid version simply because we download a lot, right? And you have a limited amount that you can do for, I don't know, Cassandra gave that to you, but there's the link. There's a limited amount that you can do with the free version, and that's why we do the paid version, but they have both. And then you can play with it and see if it's what you want. And you can save in either version unlimited amounts. You just get less of the built-in photos that you see in the background list. There's just some, at some point it'll be locked because there'll be less options for you. But you can upload, there's still lots and lots of options on the free versions. We have a number of clients who play with it. Not a problem there at all. Okay, so I'm going to change that back for the sake of this one. All right, so here is Home Inspector Facebook 1, and I'm going to save that. Now we're going to do one for Instagram. And I'm using Instagram on purpose because it's a much bigger change than Twitter. You'll see, the various image sizes are all listed here. Twitter is not going to be such a big difference. So it's going to be small tweaks. So we're going to do another one rather than go back to that one for this one. But for Instagram, it's actually quite a bit of a difference. And we are going to override. And you'll see we've got to make some changes because now it doesn't work the same way because it is a much narrower canvas. And I think I didn't duplicate. But I can still use the same basic premise and make, whoops, some small changes. Okay. And still have some of the elements in. Okay, so what did that take me? 45 seconds to adjust from Facebook to Instagram. So really easy, quick change. And then you just change this. Actually, we're going to duplicate this to make sure that I didn't overwrite the original. And now we've got Instagram one. Oh, it went back. All right. Those will be backwards in size, but you get the idea. So we've got a Facebook one here. We've got a Instagram one there. So it put me back on the original size when I duplicated it. But you can see actually this one actually worked better as far as maintaining its size integrity with the change. So some will need a lot of change, some will need very little change. Okay, so I had to do that because it would make me crazy. Now, what you'll see here is you've got saved graphics and created graphics. Here's saved. And we have a ton of different images that were here, but you've got your 2 images that you've just created, right? And now you can go back and create a new one. Oh, I think I've got too many things working. Yeah, there we go. All right, so we're going to go back to Facebook, but this time we're going to start from scratch. Okay, so we're going to go back here. And we are going to do interior of the home. Okay, and so we're starting with a blank canvas, and this time we're going to use an image that covers the full background and then put a little plate behind some text so you have the best of both worlds. So I'm just going to show you how to do that. And again, it's really easy to change the background of these elements. So here's an interior. I don't like that one. I want this one. You've literally clicked a button and you've changed the background that you've got. It takes so very little to make those changes. All the times I've looked at this picture, I don't think I've ever noticed the statue of the girl in the corner. Right? It can be simple. It can be fun with the little puppy on it. You've got a little button here that says reposition. So I want the puppy to show. So I can pull up. And it will now show what the extra in the picture that you wanted. It's going to depend on the dimensions, whether or not it's horizontal or vertical, based on the dimensions that you put in or the preset dimensions that you put in. And the same thing with your own pictures, right? The better quality the pictures, the better off your results are going to be. and I didn't show you, I'll show you after I do this, but the download variations that the system has, and some of the reasons that you would use those different systems. Okay, so we are going to add a shape on top of the picture in order to put that text, so that regardless of what colors are behind the text, you're going to be able to see it clearly. And I'm actually going to just add some text here so you can see. What? We're gonna. Okay, so you can see that this gray doesn't really pop at all on the various colors, right? No matter where you put it, some of the text is gonna sort of drift away, right? This really, really gets lost in this section here, whereas now the look really pops up. So if we add a plate behind it, we're gonna choose that one. We're gonna stretch this out so it's bigger. And we're gonna go back to the blue, but this is really, really strong color on a bit of a muted background. So we're gonna soften that, right? And we want those corners to be rounded. 30%. So now you've got a nice round corner. You've got a softer blue, and again, you can change that to, you know, whatever color that is your preference. Oh, that's the border. There we go, right? So whatever color works for you, you can adjust and change to. Yellow, you know, whatever works for you. We're gonna just use the blue because we know it's yours is blue. And then we want this plate to be behind the text. So we're gonna click down, and now the writing is on top. And just see how much clearer it is to read and see that phrase. Does that make sense to everybody? Can you give me a yes or a one in the text just so I know you're still with me? Thank you. Thanks, CJ. Now, the gray, this particular gray kind of works with the muted behind, but it's very flat. And one of the things that you can do, one is as you stretch this out, it's going to change according to how big the font is. So if you want it to be narrow, if you want it to be wider, you can increase that text quite a bit. Let's make it 85, and it just pops right up, and you just have to center it. Whatever is in these textbooks, boxes will adjust to that size. So you don't have to highlight it in order to get it, but that also means that if you want a different size text, you need to have it in a different box. You can't just throw it in there. So we can change it to white. Now, white often pops on a lot of things, but what I find is I personally like to go off just a little bit to a different kind of white, or this one's a gray, this one's a very slightly off-white. And I don't know if you notice, but the brightness can be really abrupt in a stark white. The other thing that we use quite frequently is an offset color, and this offset color defaults to this in this system. But again, you can change it to whatever you want. But you'll see it just, the one, if I put a couple in there, you can really see it, right? It gives that back shadow that pushes your text up and kind of gives it a little bit of a 3D look. I often will just use the one, sometimes with a blur, sometimes without, and the blur just means that back shadow is just softened a little bit, so it's not quite so noticeable. But it gives the text a little bit of shape and not so, you know, two-dimensional on a picture, which is in its nature two-dimensional, but there's no reason we shouldn't give it a little bit of punch. And again, you can change that color. You know, if you want it to be brighter, you can pull that blue. You see how that changed the dimension of that text altogether? Lots and lots and lots of different options that you can do. That yellow actually looks quite nice because it kind of blends with the beigey colors in the background, but still gives it a nice texture. And then you can work with pulling that in tighter. A little bit more here. So it just fits right around your text. Or you can, you know, give a big canvas for yourself, and you can center it, you can move it, whatever works for you. Now the great thing about this, and I started at thinking, you know, we could make a bunch of graphics that talk about the specifics of, let's do, you know, what should a home inspector ask about your electrical? What should you ask your home inspector about your chimney? Those specific things. But in this case, if you do it this way, where you just do what should your home inspector look at, then in your little post blurb, right? So when you're going to, I'm just going to go to Facebook really fast. Okay. Just going to go to my personal one, right? So I shared this from our ThinkFlame Facebook, but I didn't just share it, right? I could have just shared, you know, here is a great thing for you to think about, but I didn't. I added something else to it. Something small, you're going to do the same thing. So if this was the home inspector one, you're going to be actually adding, you know, do you know what to ask your home inspector about your chimney? Your chimney is one of the things your home inspector should be looking at. And, you know, here are a couple of things to think about. And there could be a couple of points that are in there with the image that is about, where is it? Where the image that is about there. So now we're talking about a chimney. I can actually go through here. Chimney, did I spell it right? Probably not. Chimney. I can hear Cassandra laughing at me on the other side, just so you know.
Have to keep you grounded.
Okay, so here we go. So now there is a picture with a chimney. Now we want the chimney to stand out. So we're going to move this down so the chimney is front and center. And do I still like that blue? Maybe not. Maybe I want it to be a little more muted, but still pop out. Maybe I want it to be a more traditional gray. You know, you've got lots of different options depending on your mood that day, your brand, your audience, all of those things are going to play in. And so now the exact same image with the exact same phrase can be used in multiple different ways and shared. And that little micro piece of content that you have, this one little content, can now represent multiple more pieces of content that we're not even counting, right? When we go back to this list and we say, you know, 5 for Twitter and then a graphic for each of the platforms, well, we've just shown that if you phrase it a certain way and then change the topic and the background, you can use it multiple different ways. And I'm not sure how long that took me, but not very long. I suspect under 5 minutes per picture for sure. Now, when you first start playing with it, you might play a little bit more. And I'm just going to save that one really quick. And then I'm going to go to create a graphic again. And I'm going to show you. It doesn't have to be specific. So let's use some patterns. You've got all kinds of pretty colors here. And you've got, this will take a little bit to load because the patterns I'm looking for are towards the end. right? You've got some wood patterns that would be appropriate for home inspection. You've got brick, different patterns like that. If you just want to be silly, there's, all kinds of different patterns that you can use. But we're going to use brick, and then we're going to go to graphic, and I'm not sure what's here. Let's see what we got. Okay, so we've got all kinds of different workers here. We've got men in suits, men in hats, women with pretty hair, all kinds of people here. And we're gonna just grab this one just as an example. And then we're gonna grab some heading text. Do you know your home inspector? Okay, so do you know your home inspector? And then we're going to put some subheadings. Questions to ask. And you can put a number in front of this. Numbers often push people, but the particular blog that we have isn't numbered. It just has a lot of different headings to ask them. And what you could do is just go through and go, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Nice, good, uneven number. I'm not entirely sure why, but uneven numbers often attract people's attention more than even numbers when it comes to blogs and tips and tricks. I'm sure there's lots of psychology behind it. I'm not sure what that is, but I do know it works. So 9 questions to ask. Now we go back to those shapes and we throw some stuff behind it. We could play with this a little bit and see if there's a color that works without it. The white actually shows up quite nicely on the brick. In this case, the off-white. And you could play with this. You could make this smaller and this bigger, in all kinds of different ways. This particular icon, you can't change the color of it because it's already got multiple colors. But if you had used an icon that was just black, then usually you can change that color. I don't like that. Where's the blue? I'm just going to make that blue. I don't like that either. Yellow. Okay, I'm trying not to get sucked down the rabbit hole, but it's hard. Can't remember. Okay, so I'm just going to turn that back to black. We're going to go back to the shapes. We're going to use this one for no particular reason. No, that one's not going to let me stretch it. Okay, again with that down button. And there it is. It's popped right up on there. And you can change this around if you want. If you want that to go lower, and then the questions to up there. And then the gentleman's face is up there, and you can make these big if you want. Or you can make it a little bit smaller, and we could do Another shape. See, that rabbit hole is dangerous. Right, all kinds of different things that you can do with that, and then you choose your colors, right? Then you're going to choose what you want to do with it. Do you want to just make it a little bit lighter? 46. 46. That one darker. Actually, I'm going to leave that filled in. But you get the idea, right? Okay, does anybody have any questions about that process and how you move through it? Throw it in the chat, or I can unmute you if you say yes to ask your question. Nobody? Everybody's good? Okay. Well, I'm going to move on and go to Cora. So you can see how easy it was to make those graphics, right? So that was, we've been on the call for 45 minutes. So multiple ways and multiple images that you can make graphics and then share those those pieces of content out and utilize them. Now, the other place that you're going to share these, besides the obvious, is the question and answer forum that I spoke to you about last week. Cora. Ooh, thank you. Okay, so we're just going to go to home, and you're going to see all kinds of different things to do. You're going to see questions that people are asking that they've asked me. I'm not sure why anybody would ask me about Montreal, but they did. You can see questions that I've asked. Now, Cora is a place where they're a knowledge base. So if you have knowledge that isn't covered, you can search for questions. You can search for home inspection, home inspector, inspections, home inspections. There is a whole topic that is strictly on home inspections, right? Where they're asking questions and looking for answers. But you are absolutely encouraged to add a question. So you can add a question about home inspection. You can put your question in, whatever it was that you decided on, and then answer your own question. You are going in as an expert to share some information. And then people will answer the question as well. And then you can continue that conversation. It is a really good way to build some credibility. It's a really good way to share. It sends great signals back to your website. And if people like what you're saying and you add links to that question, because that is the key, right? When you're doing those shares, when you're posting with purpose, you're putting a valuable insight about the graphic or whatever you're sharing. You're putting a link, and where appropriate, you're putting hashtags and those kinds of elements so that people are driven back to your website. Does that make sense? Is everybody still following? Another thing about Quora is when you're answering questions, if you put a profile with information, including links back to your blog or your Facebook page or your LinkedIn, whatever you want to increase the traffic to, it can help as well. Another way to send some great SEO signals out there to the various search engines. All right, so going back to our list here, so we're moving down. The next one is Facebook Live, right? I know almost all of you are on Facebook, and Facebook Live video can be intimidating. Goodness knows I avoid it a lot, so I understand. But we aren't talking about getting on and doing an hour webinar or a presentation. We're talking about 30 seconds to 120 seconds, so 2 minutes, in that range, where you take your question, right? You go back to that little section of what should you expect when a home inspector comes to your home, and do a Facebook Live and actually present that, right? You know, have you done home inspection before? What should you expect? Well, here are a couple of things. And then for 30 seconds to that, 2-minute mark, you're answering the question. And then you're done, right? Facebook makes it really easy when you've got, a live video. I can do it on my personal as well. So a live video, and on your business page, it looks basically the same. Right? You're going to hit it doesn't like it because I'm not in my management system. But you're going to hit that live, and you're going to go ahead and do that video. And then you can download that video and put it on YouTube. You're done, right? If you've taken 2 minutes, you've made that video, you're going to download that video from Facebook, and you're going to upload that video to YouTube. That process is probably going to take you 5 minutes. And now you have 2 strong pieces of video content, and you know how much people like video, and you can take that same answer if you've answered it in Quora and put a link to your video from there as well, again, sending those great signals. So not a really easy way, a non-scary way to get yourself in front of video and to start doing small clips, and you can share that video in any place that you can share a video now, and you've created another piece of content, right? So that Facebook Live, and then downloading it and uploading it to YouTube. Now you can take that same recording and go to, if you Google converting an MP4 to an MP3, and there's lots of different ways to do that. Some of them are quite simple. You can take that recording, and now you've got a little mini podcast. And you can go to something like Podbean, which is what we use. And they have a free starter version. You can upload that podcast, and you have another shared element without doing a lot of extra work. Some of the converters, literally you pop it in, and then a couple minutes later they spit out, depending on the length, the converted file. So you've got some really easy ways to create some really nice content that, again, reiterates the message that you were trying to get. You can send them back to the original message, but gives it to them in a format that is little and bite size. And let's face it, these days everybody has the attention span of a gnat. So having little bite-sized pieces of content, those little micro slivers of content, can really be a powerful way for you to drive traffic back to your website. Okay, so can I get some ones in the chat so I know that you guys are still awake, of those people who know that they're going to go and they're going to take that 30 seconds, that 1 minute, and do a Facebook Live in order to promote their blog or website? I'm watching the chat. Joan, excellent. I'm excited. Stacy, you're not ready yet? Okay. Perfect, Diana. CJ? There better be lots of ones there, CJ. Excellent, Iris. Iris is on. Say hello, everyone. Okay, so now the next pieces of, the last 7 of the 67 pieces that you can get from your content, these ones take a little bit longer. So these aren't something that you would do frequently. One is to make a photo text videos. You've seen them everywhere where there are pictures behind and there's just text that slides and some music. And there are lots and lots of different systems that will do the job for you. I'm actually gonna, you'll get this, but just in case you want it now, copy. This is the one that we use. And it's a really easy system to use. I mean, there's so many of them out there. The one that we have will actually pick things up for you in your from your blog. You can actually put your blog URL and it will actually just pull it right up. It'll pull up some ideas, it'll pull up some pictures. I'm a little persnickety, so I never use those. I feel like it is just a little bit too long usually, because my blogs are long, but that's me. But you can do little quick ones. You can do, they have templates that you can utilize, but it will take you longer, right? You've got to match your wording and play with it a little bit more. I'm just going to show you what this one looks like. Article to video, URL to video, media videos, blank canvas where you can start by yourself some pre-made templates that are already done. I'm just going to open this one up. So I'm just going to open this so you can see. This is a little coffee one. I don't know if you can hear the music. Okay, I'm going to stop that now, but you get the idea. And there's tons and tons and tons of different templates here. You can start from scratch. You can use your URL, but this is going to take you longer, especially at the beginning. We do them once in a blue moon, except for customers who do it on a regular basis. And it takes a couple of hours by the time we get all of the pieces together, even with the great templates. Now we're persnickety, you don't have to be that fussy. Sometimes a little imperfection goes a long way. People want to see that you're human, and imperfection sometimes can convey that, can get people to smile, get people to laugh, and all of that makes you more human in a world that there's a lot of artificial perfect out there. Okay, I'm getting the 60-minute mark. All right, so going back to our list. So that is the photo text videos. There's ways to do that with PowerPoint and other ways, but they're not fast. They aren't a 5-minute thing. They are, an hour, 2 hours elements. You can take all of the points that you've pulled from your blog, even just the 5, the 5 that you've gone and done a little slide deck with Google Slides, with PowerPoint, and then you can upload that onto SlideShare. That's another way to do it. Then you can use those points. You can do a webinar and expand on whatever you put in your blog. Make it a half an hour. Again, takes a little more time. And then, of course, if you do a webinar, you record that, then you can upload that to YouTube or whatever video sharing service that you might use. Infographics. You can create infographics actually pretty quickly with Snappa. They've got some, nice simple ones. Where is it? Here it is. Right? They've got some ones that are built right in, and you just change the information to match. They've got a lot of choices here, as you can see. people like infographics. The only thing that we say about infographics is when you use an infographic on your website, on your blog, make sure that your feature image isn't the infographic itself, because then your feature image is going to be, you know, yay long, and that isn't a great way to pull people in, because often it's even the infographic, even though it's bite-sized information's within it and people like them, if you hammer them in their face with the full infographic right off the you know, the start, it can put them off. So you want to give them a little bite size, right? You want to give them a little snippet of the infographic as your feature image, and not the whole thing. So, but infographics, again, you've got to choose the pieces of content that are going to be in there. Like you've got 5 points here. That's great. But now you've got to phrase the other stuff. You've got to make sure it fits. You've got to fiddle with the icons. It takes a little bit of extra time. It's worth the extra time, but it does take a little bit of extra time. Checklists. Okay, so I made a checklist of the talking points that we talked in the keynote and that we covered today. So this is a checklist that you're going to get, and you're going to be able to refer back to this. And I made this in Snappa in about 20 minutes. Now, I've used Snappa quite a bit, as you could see from our saved images. Not as much as Cassandra, but quite a bit. And now these swooshes were uploads. Everything else in here were things that were already in, except for the font. The font is something that you can, I'm actually just gonna open one. The font is something that you can actually upload if you have a specific font that you want to utilize. So it comes with a ton of fonts already built in, but we have a font, a specific font that we use with our brand, and I wanted to use it for our headlines. And so, for example, so I uploaded that font, and now that font is built into the system, and I can just, with a click of a button and change of size, use the font that works for our brand. So that's pretty quick. Before I get in trouble for going over, not leaving time for questions, email series. All of this little snippet are really good information for people who might be considering your services. Doing some automation for email, these little pieces that you're pulling out are also great pieces for a brief tip, you know, tip of the week that drives people back to your website, gives them something digestible in a very short period of time, and you can do that with automation. We do it with ActiveCampaign. There are lots of just different systems out there. We will be doing a webinar walking through, you know, sort of setting up your first automation later in February. So if you're interested in that, let us know, and we'll send out invitations to that. I don't think we have the date set, but we'll let you know for that. And it can be a really simple way, right? If you're pulling 5 pieces once a week from your blog, you can add 5 weeks worth of tips and tricks to your automation. And then you never have to worry about, oh no, I've got to send something out in an hour. It's done, right? You can add a little bit more one week. You can, you know, make it very brief. You can put graphics. You know, you don't have to. You've created graphics, so you can use them there as well. And then again, with that very quick flip, let's go back to this one. You can resize this for an email header. Open as new graphic. Okay, so now you're going to change the way some of this sits, because it is long and narrow in order to sit nicely in the email and not take over the email. So you can move it all so that you are, yikes. There we go. All right, really quick, but there's an example of a way that you can use that same image, press that button, and now you have an image that, with a small amount of tweaks, you can use for your email automation. And obviously, when you first use a system, if you're using Canva, if you're using Snappa, if you're using any one of the, the variety, they're going to have templates. They're going to have different ways they do it. I don't know if Canva changes sizes quite so easily, but they all generally have something that you can utilize that. As I said, it's really easy to spend a lot of time getting lost in some of the little details. And as you build different images, you're going to be able to reuse some of those templates and change some aspects, right? So you can change this background to a different color in order to give it a different feel. So, maybe not the yellow. Maybe you're feeling purple today. You can change that picture really quick. So these can all be things that you reuse, and it'll get faster. At the beginning, I'd set some time limits so that you don't go crazy and all of a sudden you look up and you've spent 3 hours trying to make one graphic look perfect. For the perfectionists out there, set some time limits. Give yourself a little extra time at the beginning, but set some time limits so you don't follow Alice down that rabbit hole and get confused coming back out. You really want to make sure that you're using your time wisely. And the whole idea behind this is to get multiple pieces of content in a very short period of time from content you've already written. So you want to keep that in mind. And absolutely, Cassandra is 100% guilty of going down that rabbit hole. She's actually doing a little dance in front of me to show that she is unrepentant about that. Okay, so that is the email series. If people have questions, pop the questions in group chat, and then I'm going to unmute you, and so that we can, talk a little about that. And we've got a little bit of time. Hopefully, you've got a little bit of you've got some time to spend. We've got about 20 more minutes. So there's questions about something specific here or something that you'd like to see in the future. Pop it in there, and we'll talk about it. Nobody? Everybody's good? Cassandra, is there anything that you can think of? I'm going to unmute you.
Over your database. The changes you make in ThinkFlame not only apply here, but also to the mobile app. That's one thing. Next is.
Yeah. Okay. Cassandra, I muted you if you want to unmute yourself, because I think you're still muted.
I don't have anything.
No? All right. Anybody else have any questions? Are we good? All right. So if you have, no worries, Joan. Our dog sits under our desk, so we completely understand. If you have questions or think of questions over the next few days, feel free to throw them to us. Oh, thank you, Diane. I'm glad that was helpful for you. You can reach me. I am putting my email in the chat right now. If you have any questions about this or anything else, you can throw me an email if it comes to mind over the next couple of days. And great, I'm glad that was helpful. And I know a couple of you have taken us up on the special that was offered at the keynote for the assessment and recommendations. So we've extended that for everybody on the group to the end of the week. So if you're interested in that, just let us know. And that's it for today. Yeah, I'm sure there will. Absolutely, Yuris. We're always here for you. So as you're walking through, think about what you want to do. Do not beat yourself up if the first graphic that you create from scratch doesn't look like the templates, right? Those templates were put together by graphic designers that's all they do. But every step that you take in utilizing the various pieces are going to help you and going to get you going and give you new ideas for other things and let you play with more information. So, take that first step, carve out those questions or those quotes, and start with those first 5 and those first 5 graphics. Even if it's one quote and you divide it 5 ways or think about different ways to phrase it, take that first step and let us know. Send us an email next week and let us know how far you got. Like, did you manage to take one of those phrases and turn it into 10 different pieces of content? That's a victory. And that is a victory that you can take, and it's going to ease off some of the pressure of trying to remember to create new social posts, to answer more questions, to put in that email. So every step you take is going to make it easier. What do they say? 21 days to a habit. So challenge yourself to do one small thing every day for the next 21 days.